The Form 17 is the seller's disclosure statement. This is required by Washington State that all sellers disclose any known defects or facts about the property. And this form has to be filled out entirely in order for it to be truly complete. So when you give a seller a Form 17, please instruct them not to leave any boxes blank. Instruct them to put NA if it's not applicable. And then right here, you're going to want to make sure that you check if the seller is or is not occupying the property. Now, these questions may seem a little confusing to a seller that might not know some of the answers to these. It is perfectly acceptable to write "don't know" if these are anything that applies to your seller. If you see that there's a box blank, or if any of these ones with an asterisk has a yes in the column, please encourage your sellers to explain why they answered in that way. There is a space at the bottom of the page, at the last page, to go ahead and explain anything that has an asterisk next to it that was marked yes. So one thing you can do as an agent to make sure that your client is filling this out completely is to check this paragraph down here and see if they've explained any of their answers from above. Anytime you're checking this form for completion, go ahead and just glance through the right column and make sure all those boxes are marked. The second thing I do is go back through a second time and look in the yes column. And I look for all the ones that are answered yes. And if it happens to have an asterisk next to it, then I try to find an explanation of why that was answered in that way. Now, to have a complete Form 17 in this disclosure, you might also want to attach any of these documents that pertain to these answers. So it says here, if there's a road maintenance agreement, yes, no, I don't know, and not applicable. If you have the road maintenance agreement, feel free to attach that to the Form 17. This could be a pretty lengthy document if you do end up attaching all of the pieces with it. Anytime you have things that are publicly available, they are not necessary to attach. However, anytime you have this information, I would just encourage you to do it, to be as forthcoming as possible. And if your seller has any questions about these things, you can do your best to help them understand the question. You can direct them towards resources like the title company to have some of these questions answered. Or if they really don't know, you can just encourage them to say they don't know. If you find out that any of these things are answered incorrectly, and you know because you have material facts and you have information telling you how it should be answered, do not mark up this form. Instead, just make sure that you make a note in either an email or somehow in writing to another agent who might be looking over this Form 17 to correct anything that you know is absolutely incorrect. Make sure all the pages are initialed. The seller does sign the final line right here on number 10 as a full disclosure. And then when it's delivered to the buyer can choose how they would like to sign to respond to these.